Hello, Teresa here. Today we're going to look at video number 3, Slow Stitch for Lockdown. We're going to be making a cushion from scraps, or a cushion cover from scraps, using up all our bits and pieces from the rag bags, bit boxes, or whatever you want to call it. We're going to be using crazy patchwork with slow stitch. Now there is a slight problem with the microphone in the first couple of minutes of the video, but it does improve because the microphone corrects itself. So I hope you can bear with me and the tinny sound that starts the video. Enjoy what you're doing, practice your mindfulness if you want to, turn the video sound down, and I hope you enjoy it. Have fun. So here we have a cushion, the inner cushion, and it measures, let's just check it, it measures 16 inches square, which is 41 centimeters square. And we're going to cover this. We're going to have probably a plain back and a crazy patchwork front. So I'll set about choosing the fabric, although having said that, that's my old ironing cloth there. I'm going to empty out the colours and an old pillowcase which I use for tabletop ironing. I have got a sleeve board somewhere, but the craft cupboard is in such a mess I really daren't open it. So I have 2 drums like this. Got these from Poundland for obviously £1, although not so obvious now that some of their things are £2 and £5. But anyway, so I have 2 drums of odds and ends, very small pieces. I'm going to empty them out and just really, I'm not sure whether to actually plan the colours or just take it as I grab them. So whatever I do decide, they're going to need ironing. I seem to have a lot of blue here. Yes, we'll use these on another project if I remember rightly. So I'm going to take some of the pieces that I like the best. Oh, nice Christmas pieces there. They're coming useful in a couple of months' time. Right, so I'm going to grab some of these. Oh, on my phone. Not answering that yet. Mobile phones are wonderful, aren't they? Beautiful. You're never free, are you? Thankfully, maybe. So anyway, I'm going to grab these blue ones, and that. I might start with those, and part of my son's shirt. So I'll take some of that. Right, it looks as if this is going to be predominantly blue. I might have a little bit of the pink in it as well. Stick those up there. Don't want that bit. That's very pretty. Might find somewhere to pop that lace. We always like a little bit of lace. Oh, that's very nice. We've used that before. We've used that quite recently. Can't remember what on, but yes, we have seen that before. That. So far we have mostly light blues. This is a nice dark blue which will contrast. Then we've got the contrast between the light and the dark. We have mostly patterns there. We need a couple of plain fabrics, so we get the contrast once again between pattern and plain. So we take that. There's a little piece there. Right, I think I can pop this away. Oh, that's nice. I like that. I made a top out of this, a shirred top, which is really nice because it grows as you grow, or I should say as I grow, which isn't so nice, but I like that. So we'll pop these away back in that one, and right, oh, that was quick. I thought it'd be ages. Sometimes it's best just to pop your hand in as you do it without the planning, and you get some amazing results. Right, this one, oh, I've not been down here for a while, so let's see what we've got here. Oh, we've got a roll of That's just like string strips, fabric strips. I don't think I'll be using those, so let's stick that there. So we'll pop those in there. Don't need that. More of my son's shirts. Don't need that. Oh, this belongs to the dress that I'm actually wearing. It's a caftan. I wondered where that had got to. I must have cut a piece off of that. Yeah, if I can, yeah, I'm wearing what that belongs to. Put that onto one side. A little bit of batik. That might come in handy. A little bit of purple there. Oh, lace, lace. I'm trying to stay clear of using lace all the time. But I'll start with the next project without the lace. So let's have a look what else we have. I think at this point, oh, that might come in handy. Yeah, I think so. Maybe that's quite pretty. What's that? Oh, something, and I was experimenting with. Right, I'm going to call it a day now. I think I have enough there, and it is all blue. So maybe just something to break it up. Started with a little bit of pink. That's nice. That's just a tiny bit. That would be like a little highlight piece. So I'll see if I can use that. Have some of this. That's from a fabric strip. Right. Oh, and maybe some of this, which will go with that color wise anyway. So, well, I'm not going through that any longer because I'll be taking out stuff that I really don't need. Oops. This horrible colored thing here is actually a pillow slip, and it's ghastly. It's a horrible colour, and I'm sure I didn't buy it. I can't imagine buying something like this unless it was cheap and it was in a sale. Maybe I even bought it to cut up. But I've found it again. I've got two and a matching duvet cover. And I can't for the life of me think of why I would buy something so awful, a dreadful colour. So I'm imagining it was for a project that maybe didn't materialise. So I'm stuck with this dingy old colour. But I'm sure later on I'll be able to do something with it. Now, what I'm going to do, I have quite a substantial pile here of fabric. If I just bring that over, didn't want that one. So there's quite a substantial pile here, and most of it will need an iron. Now, you all know how to press, how to iron, so I'm not going to bore you with images of me just sitting here ironing. So I will iron these, and some of them, these larger pieces, I'm going to rip. I shall just rip these to see what sort of shapes I can get. This one will be straight like that, just so I don't want any big pieces on this, any too big. That's a nice size, so I'll keep them no bigger than that. So some of these, the larger pieces, I will rip and just see if I can get some interesting shapes. But having said that, the sort of fabric this is, I think they'll probably all end up sort of square or rectangular. I can't see anything there that will rip tatty. Anyway, I'll carry on with this and I'll get back to you shortly. Well, I managed to sort the microphone out, so it should be okay now. It was to do with the webcam. I've altered the webcam, and I'm not sure I like this setting, but I'm going to give it a try anyway, and hope those of you who are used to the old way of videoing can put up with this or give me feedback as to what you prefer. But anyway, perhaps we'll get used to it. It might actually be better once I put my glasses on and I can see the screen properly. Anyway, I've carried on and I've cut out the pieces. I should say I ironed them, but I did, however, cut out a couple from the bigger strips. So now the grey, that hideous grey pillow slip, has its uses. Ta-la, here it is. This will form the backing of the cushion, front backing of that cushion. So I've ironed it and I've creased it, so there's a nice crease, a nice cross in the center. Now there are several ways you can do this. You can actually start your patchwork from one of the edges and work down or work across bit by bit. It's up to you. I prefer to start from the middle and work out. It seems to grow faster and it gives you an idea of what to place next to what. If that's what you want to do, you might want to do it completely random, and that gives a really lovely effect actually, to do it random. But I still like to work from the center and go out. So this piece of fabric is 18 inches square, which is, let's have a look, which is 46 centimeter. Well, it's actually 45.5 centimeters square. Now, just as how we did the covers, the journal covers, very similar to that. What we're going to do, or what I'm going to do with mine, I'm going to start in the center, as I said, and I've decided to put a piece of red there because it is predominantly blue. I want it broken up immediately to give it balance. I want to introduce the second colour, the red, so we don't include the neutrals in this, the black and the white. So the colour red, I want to introduce that immediately, but there's only going to be a tiny bit of red. And to pop it elsewhere, maybe up there, and then carry on with blue, it's going to be unbalanced. Colours will be unbalanced, and that does my head in. So if it does my head in, I know that it's going to do a lot of crafty, arty people's heads in. So to give the overall effect balance, I'm going to put the red in the centre. Up to you how you place it. You might want the squares that way, that way. It depends. I'm going to have them that way. Yeah, can I cope with them not straight? Yes, I can. Right, so I'm going to put a pin in there. Now, if it's your first time doing this, you might want to put more than one pin in. You might not. It's your work. You make the rules. And actually, there aren't any rules. Anybody tells you there are rules to this, then you tell them to go and boil their heads. Because there are no rules. You make your rules as you go up. However, once again, if you're working for examination, it's slightly different for obvious reasons. But we're not working for examination, so this is completely free and it's about your expression and your skills. So off we go. Pop that there. I'm going to be working with 4 pieces at a time, I think. But as you know, I'm likely to change my mind at the last minute. Right, that's as it comes actually. That's how it came out from the top. Now, I could have it that way. Definite straight line going on there. Could have it that way, which will give the red a shape. It would take the square shape away from the red, and it will just give it a bit of a softer edge around here. So I'm going to leave that there. Find 2 more. Wow, this is going to be interesting, but that's how it came. Now I could pop that there, and once again it's making another shape around the red. Could pop it there. You might like just to have them all, the lines running straight that way. Personally I don't, so I'm going to just fiddle around for a minute to come up with something else. Let's have a look. That's bothering me a bit, but hey ho, that's part of its story now, so it's staying. Let's have a look. Oh, this, oh, that's a tiny piece. That's a very big piece, so we could end up covering some of that up. Oh, right, yes, I'm liking that. I like that. So I'm going to pop that in there, and this here, and that there. Now personally, at this stage, I don't like this line here. It's too straight. Let's see, is that coming out on the screen? See, I've got this new camera. I've placed it differently, and I'm not sure. That's better. I'm not sure how to move stuff about now. So I'm not keen on this straight line there, but it's staying because now I popped it there. But the next, when it comes to this edge, I will probably cover it up a little bit, take that straightness away, who knows. But for the time being now, I'm going to tack these, if I can find my tacking, my needle. Yep, I'm going to tack these down so they don't move when I slow stitch them. You might not want to tack. You might now feel confident enough just to start your slow stitching. Now, as I've said before, don't worry about the tacking. It comes out unless it's very neat, and then you can pass it off as running stitch. But tacking, or basting as some call it, are very big running stitches with quite a weak thread. The idea of the weak thread is so that you can remove it easily. So here we go, round there. Is that coming out up there? Yeah, I think so, just about. Nice big stitches, don't worry about them being neat. I hope you can see those. There's a pink coming out on the screen. Just one strand of, well, it's one of those little spools of thread that you get in those little kits that's got a tiny little pair of scissors that normally break the first time you've used them. It's probably got a sewing needle and 2 pins and maybe 4 little shirt buttons. Very useful for traveling. I mean, I'm sort of taking the mickey out of it a little bit, but I've got one in my suitcase and I do travel with one, and the amount of times actually that I've used it just in little emergencies, a little tear here or a missing button. So yeah, they are good, and I mean they're only a couple of pounds anyway. Right, so we're getting there. I think my American friends call tacking basting, and which is quite funny because I think most of us in the UK, when we hear of basting, we probably think of Christmas. Basting the turkey with a spoon of fat. Right, there we go. Haven't quite gone all the way round, but that gives you the idea of how to baste your pieces in place. Now don't forget, you might feel happier doing just one at a time. You might not want to do 2 or 3 or 4. You might want to do 5, 6 and 7, up to you. So we'll take the pins out. Now I've just noticed I didn't go round there, but that's okay. Let's stick the pins there. Right, so just imagine that I have actually gone around here. No, I haven't. I ran out of thread. So just imagine that I've basted round there. So at this moment in time, everything has been tacked in place. I said basted then, didn't I? Everything's been tacked in place. Now I'm going to start slow stitching these 4 pieces. Now I'll start off, but I won't subject you to watching me sew the whole 4 pieces. So I'm going to start, because I haven't tacked Mind you, this will probably be covered up anyway, so no, I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start here and move around that way. Okay, move up there, probably round there. I'm just going to let the needle do its job without too much thinking. So I'm going to start here. Now those of you who have been following, is that clear enough? Right. You can have any colour you want, and just in and out and in and out. Okay, can you see those? I hope you can see those stitches, because I'm using blue at the moment. Oops, there we go. 3 strands of thread and a nice big long needle, a narrow needle with a nice point at the end. And I like a nice long needle, nice sharp needle to do this, because if you watch, you can gather up quite a lot of fabric like this before you have to pull your needle through. Okay, there. Now I will carry on doing this. Right here I can go that way or this way, and oh, decisions. I'm going to go this way, I think. Over that way. Goodness, I've got to get used to this camera. It's abysmal. And this way. Right, so I should carry on doing this and see what I come up with. Right, there we go. That's a bit caught up there, so I think I've pulled it just a little bit tight, too tight there. Right, so that is the gist of that. Find your pieces, lay your piece down, and if you're like I am, you might want to start in the middle. If not, you start wherever you want. Pin them in place, and then you tack them. If you want to, you might not need to. I don't suppose I'll tack now. I should just carry on without tacking. And then you can start your slow stitching, which we know by now is just small running stitches. Now you can vary the length of your stitches. Don't forget to vary your length, so you have that design principle of contrast, the long and the short. You can vary the width of your fabric, the width of your thread to produce a texture. I've got 3 strands at the moment, but I might do 2 strands next time. I might even do 4 strands, and that will produce an additional texture. So at the moment there's quite a nice texture going on here, because this is slightly raised, this blue one, so that's already textured in itself. These are basically the same. These two are the same. This one is slightly finer, that's cotton, whereas these are a polyester, so the texture is slightly different. But anyway, I will carry on now, and I hope to see you shortly. Right, all the pieces have now been tacked down in place. I pinned every piece and then I've tacked them. Now I have actually changed what I set out to do. These were the original pieces. As you can see, I started to slow stitch these. This one, that one. You can just see the stitching here, starting the slow stitch. But as I've always explained in the other videos, this is a work in progress, and it is a progression of an idea, so you know what's coming if you've watched
the other videos, while I was doing this, I started to change my mind and started to develop the idea a bit further. So I've left those in place, the ones that I stitched down earlier, and I decided to get my pieces and just start putting them down, randomly popping them down in place. And doing that, I then pinned them. So that this was all covered with pins. I'm just going to move this, so I hope this isn't going to make you seasick. I'm just going to move this so you can get a better idea of what's going on this piece here. It's, you see, it is all over. The whole area has been, and the side as well. So that is all done. But as I was saying, yeah, I started putting the pieces down random. All these pieces, as they came, I put them down, and I think I much prefer working that way. And then I decided that it would be an enormous task to tack around each one. Just imagine these each had, maybe some of these had 2 pins in. All of them, all the shapes, had at least 1 pin in. So I have tacked in rows, a couple of rows. Now, while I was tacking, I decided that this grey fabric, you remember this tatty old fabric that I didn't like the colour of, it is very, very fine. On the screen it looks a lot thicker than it is, but it is just very fine. If I hold it up to the light, which I'm doing now, I can see right the way through it. So I started sewing and it was too flimsy, and I thought, that's going to make it a very, very difficult task. So I added a calico background backing. So that grey is now sandwiched between the actual patchwork, the front. It's sandwiched between a nice sturdy calico background. Now you don't have to do this. If you have a fabric that is strong enough to take this patchwork, all these pieces, and it's not too flimsy and it's nice and firm to stitch, then I wouldn't bother with this. But personally I like that just a little bit firmer. It makes it easier to get the needle in and out, and it's something to work with. You can see that. Now I had a feeling if I had done that to this, it would possibly rip. Oh, and that's along the seam and it's ripping. So didn't trust that. That is why I've put the back in there. Now you can see the rows of tacking. You see the rows of tacking here, just rows in one direction, just clipping each piece of fabric, just clipping it to make sure it's held down. Where's this blue one? Here you can see there are actually 2 rows there. I've caught it twice. No, I've caught it 3 times there. No, that's off the camera. Here as well I've caught it. So each piece has been caught definitely once, but twice, maybe 3 times, once, twice, and that has held them down nicely. I've also pressed the front under a cloth but ironed the back. So press the front under a cloth, iron, just press it down like that. You don't need to iron this, don't want to iron it at this stage, but this is okay to iron. So iron that, and it gives you this nice flat surface to work on. So that is now ready to work on. As you know, everything I do is not a work in well, it is a work in progress, but a progression of an idea. So this idea still stands. I mean, I won't remove these stitches because they're still very useful, at the moment I don't know if I'm going to break these areas down into other shapes, maybe circles, and do stitches in circles, or even squares, do them in squares. It's a very big area. Or I might just stick to, well, I've got these, you've seen these before, these Big Beast journals. That's from this journal, which was done quite a while ago now. Now this is one way, and some of you have already seen this, I know. Let me turn it around that way. So this is one way of doing it, and this is page in a journal. That is just, for those of you who haven't seen it, that is just, that's a rather nice page. That's a page in a journal. So I could do it this way and keep the shapes as they are. Now at this stage you have to imagine, because this is going to be about slow stitch. Oops, sorry about that. So the cushion cover is about slow stitch, which this one is about feather stitch and applique. So yeah, there isn't any lace there or any other stitches. So I could do it this way, more or less the traditional crazy patchwork way this is. So could do it that way and add slow stitching on some of these or all of them. So that is one way to do it. The other way, and this is the way that I actually prefer, and this is the other journal that we did there, this one. Right, the other way is to do it this way, sticking, once again keeping to the shapes. Oh, this is so heavy. Excuse me, I'm going to turn that round, so hide your eyes, don't want you being seasick. Right, can you see that? Right, I think that's okay, isn't it? So this is the other way of doing it, sticking to the shapes again, using the feather stitch, adding some applique, have applique lace flower there, some applique here, and I like this idea of just popping another colour fabric on the basic shape, breaks up the colour of the background. We have some stitching here, and those are pinwheels, and some, what's this, blanket stitch here, and the regular slow stitch running stitch. The lace, I always think lace is obligatory in my work. These stars are applique cut from some net, and a little bit more lace here with some cross stitch, blanket stitch here, and the feather stitch once again, slow stitch running stitch here, taking the shape of that, the basic shape there. So that's another way of doing it. As I said, at the moment, not until I thread my needle and I actually start sewing will I know what I'm going to do. So I am going to start, I'm going to thread my needle, and off camera I will start sewing. But as I say, I will give it some thought. I might draw around something like this to get the circle shape and sew around some circle shapes and do the sewing in circles, and then place it again and see what shapes I get. There's so many possibilities, and that is one of them, and I like that idea actually. Now I've heard it, I've voiced it, I like that idea. But then again, by the time I get my pencil and actually draw around this, I could have changed my mind yet again. So we'll see. I'm going to take time out now and have a coffee, sit and look at it and have a good old think. So I'll get back to you shortly and we'll see what I have decided. Okay then, right, I won't be long. I decided to stick with the circle theme. So what I did, I cut out a big circle, and I did actually go around this little bin lid. So I'm still working out how to use this camera, I'm really sorry. So I did draw around this, and I ended up with that, and as you can see I've used it quite a lot, and I just randomly placed it on the fabric, and I went round it with slow stitch all the way over, and I've made some really lovely shapes. If I hold that up, you can just catch where I have gone over different areas, and by doing that, by just placing the circle just randomly and going around it, sign around it, you create other shapes. So if you can see this, where the circles overlap, created some really lovely shapes here, just right for filling in with applique, or to fill in with slow stitch, or even other stitches apart from running stitch. You might actually see this better if I turn it over. So hide your eyes, I'm just going to flip it over. There. So there you go. I think you can see the shapes better on the wrong side. So you can see we have some really nice big shapes against some smaller ones here, even smaller there, and that is the contrast in size. So you have the lovely big shapes set against that, because that lovely big curve shape there set against the very small narrow. So here you have long against short, wide against narrow, and then on the other side we can even distinguish those even more by what texture we apply on top, whether it's flat stitchery, surface stitchery, or some sort of applique. Now what I've done, I've left this area here unsewn, just so to give you an idea of how this is done. So I'm going to put that there, and if I can work this camera, I'll be able to show you the whole. Right now, where is there? So I need to take that up there. Right, so that goes on there, and then it's pinned, and I only used about 3 pins, but this is drawing paper. It's an old piece of drawing paper, and it's particularly thick. In hindsight, I think it would have been a lot better to have used say just an ordinary piece of A4 printing paper or writing paper. This is far too thick and made it a little bit difficult. Now all I'm going to do is the running stitch around the edge. I'm not going to do it, oh dear me, through from the back. Oh, where am I? Oh, I really must work this camera out. Right, through from the back, and then just running stitch all the way round. Now by now you don't need to watch me go all the way round. So this is just all the way round, nice little stitches. Now this needle is really lovely. It's long and it's narrow, so I can dip into the fabric and then pick up several pieces of fabric at one time, because it slides along the length of the needle. Where I've used this so much, I've actually bent it. That is one bent needle. Right, I'll do a few more, just a few more there. Now you will carry on, and you will just keep placing your circle wherever you want. It doesn't have to be full circle. Some of these are half circles around the edges particularly. So I will place this here later to break down this, what will now be a big circle. I will break this down probably twice, once that way and then I'll flip it over and then there. So I shall finish that little bit of slow stitching there, and as you can see, all I've done really is go from there to there, and I will finish that off screen. Now as well, what I will do after I've done that, broken up this area, I will start the applique or decorating each one. Now it looks like an enormous task at the moment because a piece of fabric 18 by 18 is enormous for hand stitching, but I'm going to applique some areas. Now I've been down the bit box, and those of you who have been following since day one know about the passion I have for lace and see-through fine fabrics. So I will take each of these shapes individually. Now I'm not talking about the fabric shapes, I'm not talking about the individual fabric shapes. I'm talking about now the second set of shapes that we've made with the stitching. So although that is 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of fabric there, I'm not interested in those at the moment. I'm interested in this shape that the stitching has made, that one lovely big curve shape there. So that is now going to be treated as one shape made up of 4 pieces of fabric. So for instance here, this is just an example. Oh, I hope you didn't hear that. That was my stomach rumbling. So no, that's too thick. So here I could fill that shape with slow stitch round and round and round, or I could applique the same shape by popping down something lace like this. Now remember that this is a cushion front, so we don't want anything too three-dimensional like big beads, because unless it's going to be like an ornamental cushion that nobody touches, that they're only to look at, that's okay, you can do that. But if it's actually going to be functional and sit on your settee, then just remember that you don't want anything too three-dimensional. So anyway, let's carry on just a little bit. So that could go there. Imagine that cut round there. Then I have this is really lovely. My son's girlfriend gave me this, and I think it's really beautiful. So what I would do, look, and that as well. Now some of you will have seen these before on other projects. Just love that. That will come in handy, and I will dare say use that on this cushion. So I'm just going to roughly cut around that, and see that could go in another shape. We have a bit of a curved shape there that could go there. The idea, I think, is not to put too many sparkly blingy things on there, otherwise it sort of cheapens the stitching, and this is predominantly, well, it is about slow stitch. So I'm going to have fun playing around with the applique with these shapes, just seeing where I can put them. I might not even use this. This might just be a fraction too big for the shapes. Yeah, unless I put it down here. But I'm really not sure about this. I think that might be too in your face, and it might detract from the stitching. So I'm going to play around, and I will make a start on this, and as soon as I make a little bit of progress, I'll get back to you. So it won't be long. Right, this is how far I've come with this, and I have to be honest that this has taken quite a long time. It's taken more than several hours, shall we say. It's really nice to do though, so don't let the time put you off. It's just lovely, especially at the moment with the lockdown and having to stay in and being a bit, well, lonely, I suppose. It's just lovely to lose yourself in this and do some thinking, some mindfulness. It's been lovely. So I do hope you give this a try. But anyway, this is how far that I have come, and it's really too big to get on the whole screen. If I lift it up from corner to corner, and that one there, I like that shape particularly. Put the ice cream man out there. So I've done some slow stitch. Oh, that noise, just listen. That car has been like that now for about 6 weeks. How the police haven't picked him up, I don't know. Only a young man, a young man. And I think he's taking advantage of the slow, quiet roads. But anyway, that's another, leave that for someone else to complain about. Slow stitch is supposed to calm you down, and you're living in the present. So at this very moment, in this time, this present time, he's not here. I can't hear him. So let's carry on. Yeah, so where was I? Yeah, I've eliminated some of the embellishments that I showed you earlier on, and that big flower, the big embroidered flower, it was too big. I placed it here and I placed it there and I placed it. I was desperate to use it because it's so beautiful, but I had to admit defeat. There was no way I could incorporate that enormous pink embroidered flower on here. So I've eliminated that. You will be seeing that again, no doubt. At some point it's going to raise its pretty little head. So get prepared to see that again. Now I've appliqued lots of lace, yeah, some lace and net, all sorts of net, various nets all over here. The darkness, the dark net has given it some depth. It's taken away that very two-dimensional look, and it's added the third dimension, which gives it nice depth. I love that little shape there, if you can see that. That's really broken up that blue spot there. I've appliqued some sequins here. Sequins, some flowers here. I think I might need to pick this up a bit. Right. I've appliqued some flowers here. A single blue flower there. Some more flowers here. And I'm about to do these raised flowers. You'll find that once you put your embellishment on, like these look too raised, but as soon as you sew them down, the closeness, the tightness of the slow stitch, it flattens them a little bit. Obviously it hasn't done that with the sequins, because they're a different fabric completely. Very nice star here. Is that coming out? Yeah, just about. Appliqued the star there. So what I'm going to do is just show you very briefly, where's my needle, how I've appliqued down an embellishment. We call it an embellishment or a patch or whatever you like to call it. So oops, so this is where all the circles crossed. If I hold that up, I hope you can see that. The circles cross around here. There's a nice arc shape there. And there's another line going up there. And one, I think that's part of the arc there. One coming around there. And where the lines have met, it's created some really gorgeous shapes. Apart from the arc, or the arch shape that we're going to be using. If you see that lovely shape there, it's a lovely triangle, elongated triangle. I expect it has some sort of correct mathematical name, but that is just one lovely shape there, a smaller shape there. So I'm going to use this. Oh, not on the camera, am I? Sorry. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to put it, where are we? Where's the camera? Right. I'm going to put it here inside of that arch shape. Now it's not cut to an arch shape, an arc shape. That is just how it was. So it's basically the same shape, but there's bits that haven't been filled around here. But don't worry about that, because these will be filled in with your slow stitch. To start this off, we need to come through the back, as always. You see, it isn't filled in there either. So we're going to start in that empty piece there, like that, and we'll probably get a stitch there. Now when you come to an edge, try to get the stitch running over the edge so it keeps it lying flat. Can you see that? Has that made any difference? It's made it lie flat. And then you're going to just run the needle. See, nice long needle. You can pick up a fair bit of fabric and bunch it up on the needle, and by doing that you've created several stitches in one go. Pull it through. This might not have been a good choice of colour for the camera, and as you can see, I hope you can see those stitches there. Just going to carry on right the way across, right over the raised flowers. Don't worry about the length, don't worry about them being straight, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter one piece. There you go. You don't want them as big as tacking stitches, so as long as you remember that, then you're going to be fine. So all those who have contacted me and said, oh, I really want to do this and I'm a bit worried, don't worry, there is nothing to worry about. There, first row done. So stitch back, and you're just going to repeat that on the way back. Space it or put them together, it's entirely up to you how you want your spacing. Let me move that. I'm sorry about all the movement there. I hope it's not giving you a headache. And then we go back, and this is just how you're going to fill your shapes. Bunch it all up again. There you go. And I'm going to carry on doing that until that shape is full with the thread. So that's going to stay there. Now some of these shapes I am going to leave empty. I'm not going to fill all the shapes in. Like, let's have a look. This shape here, I might possibly leave. Oh, for goodness sake, sorry about this. I've got one eye on the camera, one eye on the work. I need a third eye for the screen. So here we go. I might leave that shape to contrast with the stitching. So don't forget our word contrast. Contrast the stitching against the plain fabric. So there are several little pieces here that I will leave and I'll not add stitching to at all. So I'm going to carry on with that. Look, I particularly like that piece as well. Is that coming out? I hope it comes out in editing. But so there we are. I should carry on with this now, and hopefully the next time that I pop it on, it'll be finished. There isn't too much to do. I have got some of these, and this is the edge of lace edging, and I've got some on here as well that I might take off, cut along there and find a home for it because it's so nice. Anyway, that remains to be seen. So I'll get back to you shortly, and as I say, hopefully it will be finished by then, but don't hold your breath. I'll speak to you soon. I've started outlining, and what I'm doing, I'm actually going over the marker guide where I did the slow stitch around the bin line, the bin lid. I've decided to go around that very same line. Now it's up to you if you actually go on the line or if you just use it as a guide and maybe just place your feather stitch, which this is, at the side. But I've decided to go over it, and that way I'm getting some really nice prominent shapes. Some of these areas here where there's the crossover need to be tidied up a little bit, but that can come later. But this is how far I've got. I suppose it might be just under a quarter, and this is a really lovely stitch to do. I think, oh, I'm not sure actually if I did any more to the background. I might have added a little bit more lace here and there, but since you saw this last, I haven't done too much. Have ironed it on the back, and that's given it even a nicer flat surface. Having said that, it is still very textured, which is lovely. So I'm just going to carry on now, and I'm going to do the feather stitch. If I can lift that up to there, hopefully you can see that. I should carry on with the feather stitch all the way around, following the orange guide. The orange guide, which was done by going round. I knew that would happen. That's my phone. I'm going to ignore it. Yes, the marker. By going around the bin lid, it's given lots and lots of very nice shapes, and this is the next step, just to go round the shapes and see what we get. Already the shapes here are looking really good. Can you see the contrast here in size? The long narrow one against the fatter one, and the big one, so you've got small and big against narrow and thick. A whole range of shapes going on there. Now those of you, you must be getting fed up seeing this little booklet, but we did make this in the introduction. We saved all our examples of stitching and put them all together to form the book. So some of you will have done the feather stitch. Now for those of you who haven't, I'm just going to run through it, and it's a lovely stitch. It's actually one of my favourite stitches to do. So in through the back, notch your thread. Now I've exaggerated the width of this just so you can see it on the screen. So in through the back, from the back into the front, right over as wide as you want your stitch, and then bring it down in between. It's roughly in between now here, just down slightly as long as you want your stitch, keeping your thumb on this side, and you pull it, being careful not to knot the thread. First one, and then you repeat that. I'll move that out of the way. Repeat that over here at the side, down you go again, and pull it. There. Now you could make this, you could go on and on and on, bearing in mind each time you do this you're moving further away to the side. But what I'm doing on here is one this side. Can you see that? Where I haven't pulled it enough, it's starting to strand a bit. That's it. So the next one will come over here in line with that one. So down here where it meets here, from there to there to there, in there, down we go here, and pull it. And that is all there is to feather stitch. It is so easy to do, and it has such a lovely finished look. It's just a very, very lovely stitch. So that is the feather stitch. I should carry on with this and do some feather stitch. I think I might stick to one colour, keep to the yellow all the way around the shapes. Now I'm not sure if I'll actually go through round all the shapes. I might leave some of this showing. I'm not sure yet. It's growing at the moment. The idea is growing, the progression of an idea again. So the idea is growing, and each time I do a little area, it changes what I thought I was going to do. So it'd be interesting to see just how much of this I do cover. I will keep you updated, and the next time hopefully I'll have done a whole big chunk more. So until then, which won't be that long for you, I'm going to carry on. And here's the finished piece. As you can see that I've now been all the way around the circles. You can actually see the circular shapes here, and once you see them you can't unsee them. So all I can see at the moment are the big circles here, and there's one there as well, but it all blends very nicely. There's some really gorgeous shapes that emerged from this. I'm going to hold this up and hopefully you can see these shapes here. Beautiful shapes, elongated shapes here, like two arcs together. Then we have this lovely triangle shape here with applied applique, applied netting on the top of the blue background. Lots and lots of slow stitch, because that's what this is about. Can you see that very tiny triangle there? So we have lots of very small shapes, but we also have larger shapes. This, I think, is one of my favourite shapes. One of the corners. I think that's particularly nice. And if you can see the contrast, I've left this unstitched. And I think the plainness of that contrasts very nicely with the busyness of this. So don't forget that about the contrast. What else have we got here? The flowers here, appliqued flowers. You might just be able to see all the slow stitching on there, but the stitching is actually in a pastel green, so you might not see it too well. I've got the same flowers this corner as well. Appliqued flowers, slow stitched. How many? It's on 1, 2, it's actually on 3 fabrics, that piece there. What else did I do? I think everything else we went through. We have the sequins there, slow stitched, just placed and slow stitched across. The same with the sequins here. So there's no secrets to what's gone on here at all. It's all step by step, very easy, simple to do, but it's a lovely effect. We've got some gold lace here. There's actually this underneath here, that is tie-dye, and that's vintage tie-dye there. That must be about 20 years old, that piece. There's another piece here, vintage again. I won't move this, it's very big and it's quite heavy, or substantial shall we say. It's not going to break your wrists when you pick it up, but it's quite nice and firm. I have pressed it on the back, being very gentle. I pressed it on a towel, so any texture here would go into the pile of the towel, and it wouldn't be squashed. And as you can see, it still retained its quilting effect. This isn't quilting, it is slow stitch, but it has a quilting effect. Now the back isn't too bad, but if I were to have the back on show, as we know, this is going to be a cushion cover, but I'm not going to have a zip or an opening of any sort in here on this. It's going to be sewn all the way round with the cushion, the pillow inside. But if I were to do an opening, maybe an envelope opening hit across, where are we up there, across here, or a zip at the top, I would finish this off, and I would probably line it, maybe just line it with a sheer piece of fabric like that and sew round first. Or if it's just a case of hiding all this, I would just put some heavy violin on it. That will make it neat, tidy it up. But as I said, this won't be seen because I'm going to sew the 4 edges, and that is actually the next piece, the next piece of work we're going to do. I've chosen quite a lightweight fabric here. Once again, my lovely son's girlfriend donated this. As I've explained before, all the fabrics I use are donations. Right, just let the cuckoo have its way. You hear my cuckoo clock? So I'm going to talk loudly over the cuckoo clock. It's out of sync, so although it's 12 o'clock, it's likely to yeah, see, that wasn't 12 chimes, was it? It makes its own mind up as to what it chimes. That's because I pulled it off the wall, wrapped tinsel around it, and pulled it off the wall, removing the tinsel after getting it back from the Black Forest on a coach for many hours. Got it home unscathed, Christmas time, put it on the wall, put tinsel around it, decided I didn't like the tinsel. Without thinking, I pulled the tinsel off and pulled the clock down, and it's never chimed as it should do. Right, so this is slightly bigger than it needs to be. I'm going to pin around the edge all the way around 3 edges. Now it's entirely up to you whether you tack as well. Oops. Now because this is going to be machine sewn, you can do this by hand if you prefer. Heads in, so the machine needle goes right across the tips of the pins. I found if you have the heads this way, you're likely to catch the pressure foot on these bobbly bits, so I find it's easier to keep the pins that way. Now this is going to be pinned all the way round, just to make sure it's nice and flat. I won't tack this, I'm just going to machine sew it. Now those of you who are quite new to sewing, and I know there's quite a number of you, there's nothing to be worried about whatsoever. If you haven't got a sewing machine, it doesn't matter, because you can do this by hand. You could do a couple of rows of running stitches, the very small, like the slow stitches, say 3 little rows around the edge to secure it. Now you will need probably 3 rows with small stitches, so the cushion doesn't peep out between the holes of the stitches. If you have a sewing machine, just 1 row, depending on your background fabric. Now because the front of this is quite thick, to have a heavy fabric on the back as well might make it too stiff and too firm, and bearing in mind it is a cushion, this won't actually be used as a cushion, but for those of you who are intending to use it as a cushion, I wouldn't have a very thick furnishing fabric on the back, otherwise it's going to be more like cuddling up to a piece of corrugated card. Now, as I said, I'm not going to tack this. What I will do though, I'm going to come in slightly at the corners. Now, the pillow that I have, if it's to hand somewhere, is very soft and pliable, so it's going to be very easy. Oh, there it is. This is going to be very easy to squash up like this and easily gently push between a gap that size. Now, why that I've come in, I haven't finished this off the corners. I'm going to sew, let me move that down a little bit. I'm going to sew that round there and stop there, or stop at that pin there. So I've sewn the corners, is because it will make a nice corner when it's turned in the right way. Instead of hand sewing that all the way down, which might just weaken the corner and might not give you quite a nice edge there, sharp edge. I'm going to machine sew that. I will probably machine sew this twice just to make sure it's really secure. Now at this point I'm just going to trim off this bit, and with this fabric I will be using the right side. Normally on a lot of fabrics I actually prefer the wrong side. It's more textured, the colours are sometimes muted, the colours merge with the dyeing process or the weaving process, and it's just sometimes a nicer effect. But this material is just lovely the way it is. So there you go. Now I'm going to carry on, and the next time you see this I will have sewn all the way around. Oh, that screen. I will have machine sewn all the way around the three edges and part the corners and part of the fourth side, the fourth edge. Okay, so I'm going to get on with that and I'll get back to you very shortly. Here we have the finished cover, and I have done the two rows of machine stitching all the way around the edge, and I finished it with a zigzag and then trimmed any surplus as close to the stitching without breaking it as possible. That is very bright there, isn't it? Let me fold that up. Yeah, so then trimmed it just like this without breaking the stitching. So this, even though it's machine sewn, has got 3 rows of stitching, 2 machine stitching, 2 straight stitches and 1 zigzag. Now the next thing to do is to just clip the corners very gently. Now I will be breaking the zigzag, but it doesn't matter, just clip those off. And why we're doing this, it's to take away the bulk from the corner when we turn it into the right way. Now if you were going to hand stitch right the way across here without doing our cheeky little tiny bit of machine sewing there, you wouldn't be able to do this, so you would end up with a bulky corner. So just clip that, so that's the 4 corners nicely clipped, just to take away the bulk. And then the exciting bit of turning it in to the right side. So I'm trying to keep this under the camera as much as possible. Let's have a look. This is always the nice bit. And there we are. Now the corners need to be pushed out. You can do that with something nice and pointed. Now this isn't going to make much sense because I'm going to say pointed but blunt. Don't do it with scissors. I've had students do this with, turn their corners out with scissors, oh my goodness, and go right through the fabric. So please don't do it with that. I'm looking at a pencil here. I'm going to do it with a pencil because it's pointed but it's not sharp, and that is what we want, just to poke the corners out like so. Now if you don't get a nice sharp point, you can always do it from this side with a pin. The bits that haven't come out, now that's a nice sharp one. If you can see that one, that's a nice sharp corner. And this one, so that's nice, 3 nice ones. And the last one, there's bound to be one that gives me jip. And there we go. Right, now there is no need to iron this. We're not dressmaking, so there's no need to iron that at all, because the cushion's going in there anyway, or the pillow, the cushion, whatever you want to call it. Let's just have a look at the back of that. Yeah, that's a nice back as well. Nice, neat back. Lovely. Right, now this will be the interesting bit. Pop in the pillow pad, cushion pad. Some people call them pillows, some call them cushions. To me, they're scatter cushion insides. So because this isn't overstuffed, it's a nice soft pillow. Ooh, did you hear that? Something just, a stitch just gave way. I detected a stitch break in there. Hopefully it's just a little bit of zigzagging. And there we go, it's inside. Right, pull the corners out. So we're going to corner, that one. Corner to corner here. And it's quite sturdy with all this slow stitch. It would actually make a nice bag. This, if you just sewn up the 3 sides, you'd have to line it and turn over the edges of the 4th side, if that made sense. You could put a handle round here and you'd have a nice bag. Could go all the way round for strength. You have a nice beach bag. Right, so there we go. Now the next thing we're going to do is over sew it. Oh, sorry about that, I forgot. We're going to over sew it, and there's not much there to over sew. There's only, well, I did have a tape measure here, probably about 8 inches there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to show you on here how to do it because it'll be too fine and you possibly won't see it. You might see it if I pin. So these edges here have to be turned in. Okay, so you get a nice fold there and you're hiding the raggy bit. So you fold that in and then pin. See how far I can get with this. And then pin along the edge. Yeah, it seems to be coming out on the screen. Now once again, you might want to tack it just to secure it while you sew it. I'm not going to do that. I must have spent hours over the years pinning and then tacking, and then suddenly you think, hang on a minute, I really don't need to be doing this tacking. Why am I doing it? You know, I'm quite confident now and I know what I'm doing not to tack. I mean, obviously dressmaking, which we're not doing, but I don't want the dressmaker saying, well, yeah, you must tack because, you know, it's important to tack. well, it is important to tack when you're dressmaking, and rightly so. Yeah, it is very important. But there's more freedom in this art. Right, so now that is ready for over sewing. That edge there will be over sewn. Now I'm not going to show you on here because there's not a great deal of room now from the cushion to the camera. There's just one hand, so I'm going to set that aside and just show you here. Just a little bit of an example here on the same old rough piece of fabric that I've had on the table for ages. So imagine now this is the front of the cushion where the slow stitch is, and that is the back fabric. We have just pinned on the actual cushion. We just put some pins in after turning in the edges. All right, so we now have two very nice, neat, smooth edges. I'm going to take a needle. Now on that cushion we won't be using a big needle like this, but for this fabric I need a big needle just so you can see what over sewing is. Going to nestle in between the two edges right at the end as far as you can go. Push the knot in, hide the knot out the way. See, you can't see that knot now, and over sew as it suggests. Now on that cushion I will possibly use sewing cotton, not embroidery cotton. If I can't find the sewing cotton, and I know I can because I'm looking at it now, it's on the sewing machine, isn't it? Whatever next. But those of you who haven't got sewing thread, then use possibly 2 or 3 strands of embroidery floss, and you're going to go from, oops, that was lovely, that was clever. So we do that again, hide the knot inside. See, the knot's likely to come through because it's open weave. Right, hide the knot, over sewing just as it sounds. You're going to go from one side to the other. You're going to go over the top of the two edges and sew, over sew. There you go. Now you want to keep them neat and quite small, because this is now to keep the cushion closed. But having said that, and I'm going to try and stop saying have I said that because it's driving me insane, you might actually want to find a decorative stitch and do this. Personally, I wouldn't do that because there's enough decoration on the cushion without adding to the seam. Right, so that is your over sewing stitch from one side to the other, nice and strong and sturdy. Right, I'm going to get on with that, carry on with that. Oh dear. That's my timer. So I'm going to carry on with that and I'll get back to you as soon as I've done that. Looks very neat inside, doesn't it? Shame nobody sees that piece. Anyway, I'm off to carry on with this and I'll be back shortly. And here's the finished cushion. I hope you like it. I'm going to leave it there without touching it so you can see it in its fullness as a real cushion. If I move it about just a little bit, then you can see the whole cushion. And it's finished. Didn't take long to do the edge. So there it is. So this was about incorporating slow stitch and all those tiny pieces of fabric that you have tucked away in a little rag bag or bit box or anywhere, and we've used up quite a lot on this. We've incorporated it as well with the feather stitch, and that is it. Very easy to do, very simple, but I hope you agree that the effects are really nice. I'm going to just blow that up, so cover your eyes. There you go. Don't know if that made much difference. So I do hope you like that, and I hope you enjoyed this. I'm hoping to set up a Facebook page soon. Sorry, a Facebook account soon, for all of you who want to share your pictures and your work. And I know through the feedback that some of you would like to show your work. I'll include an email address as well, specifically for what we're doing for Allsewnup, and perhaps we can get a little bit of interaction up and running. If you did like this, please give it the thumbs up, and if you like it and subscribe, then you'll be informed when the next one's out, which will be within the next couple of days, because of the lockdown it seems to be all I'm doing at the moment, which to me is lovely. And I hope that you're all gaining something from this. So take care. There will be a design one next, an embroidery design for slow stitch, and that will be like the previous two lockdown design ones from the ivy and the leaf. The next one will be in the same style as that. So good luck with your cushion making. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these once the Facebook group is up and running. So hang on in there, all those you who've requested a little bit of interaction. I'm really looking forward to this because it opens the door to a lot of other stuff that we can do together. Anyway, take care. Please stay in and do as your governments are instructing. I know it's very hard going, as we discussed on the last video, but it will be coming to an end soon because we're all doing as we're told, but believe me, it's not easy. So take care, and I will speak to you all soon. So until then, thumbs up. There's another thumb there and I can't get it under the camera, but anyway, you know what two thumbs look like. So I'm saying bye bye.